The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden wheat fields of Harvest Prime as Lisa Campbell walked through the rows of grain that stretched to the horizon. The crops swayed gently in the artificial breeze created by the atmospheric processors, their movements perfectly timed to match the natural rhythms that earth-born plants craved. Lisa smiled as she checked her tablet, noting that this season's harvest would exceed all previous records by nearly 15%. Another successful day in paradise, she whispered to herself, using the phrase that had become common among the colonists. Harvest Prime was indeed as close to paradise as humans had found in their expansion across the galaxy. The soil was rich, the climate was controlled to perfection, and the Galactic Confederation's protection meant that conflicts and wars were ancient history. Lisa had been born on New Terra, the first human colony world, but she had spent most of her adult life here on Harvest Prime. The agricultural world fed 17 human settlements scattered across this section of the galaxy, and the work was rewarding in ways that the old Earth records suggested farming had once been. There were no famines, no droughts, no pests that couldn't be managed with Confederation technology. The hard lessons of Earth's agricultural struggles were just historical curiosities now. 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Terra, watching supply ships dock with their regular deliveries of manufactured goods from the core worlds. The human fleet under his command consisted of 12 patrol boats, 6 medium cruisers, and 2 heavy frigates. It was a respectable force for maintaining order and protecting shipping lanes, but everyone understood that real military power belonged to the Zephyrians, and their advanced warships. Jake had served in the Confederation Navy for 23 years, working his way up through the ranks while earning the respect of alien officers who initially viewed humans as newcomers to galactic civilization. The Zephyrians appreciated human reliability and attention to detail, while the crystalline Nexari found human creativity useful for solving unusual technical problems. Humans had found their place in the galactic community as steady, dependable partners who could be trusted with important, but not critical responsibilities. The Admiral's daily briefings were usually routine affairs covering trade disputes, minor piracy incidents, and requests for patrol boat assignments. Human space was considered one of the quieter sectors of Confederation territory, with crime rates well below galactic averages and virtually no military threats. The last serious incident had been a smuggling ring discovered 6 months ago, hardly the stuff of military legends. On the mining world of New Geneva, engineer Kate Sullivan descended into the newest excavation site, where automated systems had discovered deposits of rare metals essential for Confederation technology. The work was challenging and rewarding, with human mining techniques proving surprisingly effective when combined with alien equipment. Kate's team had developed several innovations that improved extraction efficiency, earning praise from Nixari, supervisors who rarely acknowledged biological workers. The mining colonies represented humanity's other major contribution to galactic civilization. Human miners were willing to work in conditions that other species found uncomfortable, and their problem-solving abilities made them valuable partners in developing new extraction techniques. The pay was excellent, the working conditions were safe by galactic standards, and the sense of contributing to the broader community gave the work meaning that went beyond mere employment. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the light cruiser Steadfast, one of Admiral Morrison's patrol vessels that maintained regular circuits through human space. His crew of 48 humans and 12 alien specialists represented the kind of mixed-species cooperation that Confederation idealists pointed to as evidence of successful integration. The Zephyrian tactical officer had become Ryan's close friend over 3 years of service together, while the Nexare communications specialist had taught the human crew more about interstellar politics than any academy course. The Steadfasts Missions typically involved escorting merchant vessels through the less-traveled jump routes, investigating distress signals that usually turned out to be mechanical failures, and showing the Confederation flag at colonial celebrations and trade gatherings. It was peaceful work that allowed Ryan to see the positive results of human expansion across multiple worlds, from the agricultural successes of Harvest Prime to the industrial achievements of the manufacturing colonies. Most humans in the colonies had only vague knowledge of Earth itself. The homeworld was described in educational materials as a recovering planet that had chosen isolation after the devastating wars of the 22nd century. Official histories suggested that Earth was slowly rebuilding from near extinction, focusing on environmental restoration rather than maintaining contact with its scattered children. The colonial governments received no communications from Earth, and attempts to establish contact through Confederation channels had been politely declined by Earth's minimal diplomatic presence. This isolation was generally viewed as unfortunate but understandable. Earth had nearly destroyed itself through warfare and environmental destruction, and the survivors were apparently focused on ensuring that such disasters never happened again. The colonies represented humanity's fresh start, free from the mistakes and conflicts that had plagued the homeworld. Colonial children learned about Earth's history as a cautionary tale, while building their own futures among the stars. The Galactic Confederation had welcomed human colonies as valuable additions to their civilization. Humans proved to be excellent farmers, capable miners, reliable workers, and surprisingly creative problem solvers. They integrated well with other species, learned alien languages quickly, and showed proper respect for the established order that had brought peace to this section of the galaxy. Human military forces were adequate for local security needs, but posed no threat to the established balance of power. The alien species in the Confederation viewed humans with a mixture of sympathy and mild condescension. The Zephyrians respected human military discipline, but considered their technology primitive. The Nexari appreciated human creativity, but found their emotional responses unpredictable. The Drakmor trading guilds enjoyed doing business with humans, but considered them naively trusting in commercial negotiations. Overall, humans were seen as useful junior partners who had found their appropriate place in galactic society. As Lisa Campbell completed her evening inspection of the grain storage facilities, she felt the deep satisfaction that came from meaningful work well done. Tomorrow would bring another day of tending the crops that fed millions of people across human space. The work was important, the community was strong, and the future looked bright under the protection of the Galactic Confederation. None of them knew that everything was about to change. The first warning came at 0347 hours when the deep space sensors around Harvest Prime detected massive energy signatures dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Captain Ryan Walsh was asleep in his quarters aboard the Steadfast when the emergency klaxons shattered the peaceful night. He rolled out of his bunk and grabbed his uniform, his mind still trying to process what could cause a full alert in one of the quietest sectors of human space. "Captain, to the bridge," came the urgent voice of his first officer through the ship's communication system. Ryan ran through the corridors of his patrol vessel, noting the confused faces of crew members who were equally bewildered by the sudden emergency. The Steadfast had been conducting routine patrol duties in the outer system, checking shipping manifests and investigating a minor asteroid mining dispute that was supposed to be resolved by morning. When Ryan reached the bridge, the tactical displays showed something that made his blood run cold. 37 large warships of unknown design were accelerating toward Harvest Prime at velocities that suggested hostile intent. The vessels were massive, each one dwarfing the largest Confederation military ships, and their energy signatures indicated weapon systems far beyond anything in the standard galactic database. "Sir, we're receiving broadcasts on all frequencies," reported Communications Officer Janet Clark, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. The ships are identifying themselves as the Korath Imperial Fleet, and they're demanding immediate surrender of all human colonial assets. Ryan stared at the tactical display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The Korath Empire was known to Confederation intelligence as a militant faction operating in the Outer Rim territories, but they had never ventured this deep into established space. Their forces had been reported as raiders and pirates, not the operators of a fleet that could challenge major Confederation battle groups. "Get me Admiral Morrison immediately," Ryan ordered, even as he watched the alien fleet split into 3 separate attack formations. "And send emergency signals to New Geneva and Fort Mason. If they're hitting us, they might be hitting other colonies simultaneously." The response from Admiral Morrison's headquarters on New Terra confirmed Ryan's worst fears. Similar fleets had appeared in the New Geneva and Fort Mason systems at exactly the same time, suggesting a coordinated assault planned with precision that contradicted everything the Confederation knew about Korath capabilities. The Admiral's voice carried the strain of a military officer facing a crisis far beyond his available resources. "All human patrol vessels are to take defensive positions around population centers and prepare for evacuation operations," Morrison ordered over the Fleet Communications Network. "I'm sending immediate requests for assistance to Zephyrian Command and the Confederation Council, but response time will be at least 6 hours, even under emergency protocols." 6 hours that Harvest Prime did not have. The Korath fleet reached weapons range 47 minutes after their initial appearance, and their opening barrage turned the colony's peaceful morning into a nightmare of fire and destruction. Lisa Campbell was inspecting the eastern grain fields when the sky above her erupted in brilliant flashes of light that resolved into streams of plasma fire raining down on the agricultural installations. The colonial defense grid, designed to handle pirates and smugglers, lasted less than 3 minutes against weapons that tore through defensive shields like tissue paper. Lisa watched in horror as the grain storage facilities she had inspected the previous evening vanished in balls of superheated gas, taking with them the food supplies for millions of people across human space. Emergency sirens wailed across Harvest Prime as the planetary government activated evacuation protocols that had never been tested under actual combat conditions. Lisa ran toward the nearest shelter complex, joining streams of colonists who moved with the confused panic of people whose peaceful world had suddenly become a war zone. Behind them, the agricultural processing centers that represented decades of careful development disappeared under sustained bombardment. Captain Ryan Walsh pushed the Steadfast to maximum velocity, trying to reach Harvest Prime's orbital installations before the Korath fleet could complete their systematic destruction of the colony's infrastructure. His patrol vessel was designed for police work and customs enforcement, not military combat against warships that outmassed 50 to 1. The tactical systems could barely track targets moving at the velocities the Korath ships maintained while delivering their devastating attacks. "Sir, we're receiving communications from the surface," reported Communications Officer Clark, her voice breaking as she filtered through the chaos of emergency transmissions. "The southern continent evacuation centers have been hit directly. Casualty reports are coming in at over 200,000 dead, and the numbers are climbing rapidly." The systematic nature of the Korath assault became clear as their targeting patterns emerged from the destruction. They were not attempting to capture Harvest Prime or seize its resources. Instead, they were methodically destroying every installation that contributed to the colony's ability to function as part of the greater human community. Power plants, communication centers, spaceports, and population centers were being eliminated with the precision of a military force that had studied their targets extensively. Similar reports began arriving from New Geneva and Fort Mason. Mining installations that Kate Sullivan had worked to improve were buried under asteroid impacts delivered by Korath mass drivers, while the defensive positions that had seemed adequate for local security were overwhelmed by weapons that made Confederation military technology appear primitive. The coordinated nature of the attacks suggested planning and intelligence gathering that should have been impossible for a supposedly minor raiding faction. The Korath fleet commander broadcast a message to the surviving colonists and the handful of human patrol vessels that remained in the system. His words carried the arrogant confidence of someone who believed he was addressing a completely defeated enemy. The translation systems rendered his speech in clear, mocking tones that emphasized humanity's apparent helplessness in the face of superior military force. "Humans of the failed colonies," the Korath commander announced, "your pathetic defenses have been swept aside as easily as we predicted. Your Confederation protectors are too distant and too weak to save you. Your homeworld Earth has abandoned you to preserve itself. You are alone, defenseless, and forgotten. Consider this demonstration a lesson to other species who might consider resisting Korath expansion into this sector." Admiral Lorison watched the tactical displays from his command center on New Terra, feeling the weight of responsibility for millions of human lives that were being snuffed out while he waited for Confederation reinforcements that might arrive too late to matter. The Admiral had spent his career maintaining peace through diplomacy and cooperation, but the skills that made him effective in peacetime seemed inadequate against an enemy that had chosen raw violence as their primary tool. The casualty reports continued to climb as the Korath fleets completed their systematic destruction of 3 major human colonies. By the time their ships departed through hyperspace jump points, over 2 million humans were dead, and the agricultural and industrial capacity that had taken decades to build lay in ruins. The survivors huddled in emergency shelters, waiting for rescue that seemed increasingly unlikely to arrive in time to save them from starvation and exposure. The galaxy watched through Confederation communication networks as humanity's peaceful existence among the stars came to a brutal end. Deep beneath the Cheyenne Mountain complex, automated systems that had remained dormant for decades suddenly activated with mechanical precision. The quantum relay network hidden throughout human space had detected the Korath assault within minutes of its beginning, and now streams of encrypted data flowed through channels that the Galactic Confederation had never known existed. Emergency protocols that had been written by military planners 2 centuries earlier began executing with the smooth efficiency of systems designed for exactly this moment. Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper was awakened by the gentle but insistent chime of his secure communication device, a sound he had heard only during training exercises and systems tests. He rolled out of bed in his quarters 3 miles underground, knowing that the activation of the deep alert protocols meant humanity's children among the stars were in mortal danger. Dan had spent 41 years preparing for this moment, while hoping it would never come. The command center that Dan entered was unlike anything the colonial governments had ever imagined existing on their supposedly isolated homeworld. Dozens of technicians worked at stations displaying real-time intelligence from every human settlement in the galaxy, while massive holographic displays showed tactical information that updated faster than Confederation systems could process. The technology was decades ahead of anything the galaxy's major powers possessed, developed in secret while Earth maintained its facade of wounded isolation. "Admiral, we have confirmation of coordinated attacks on Harvest Prime, New Geneva, and Fort Mason," reported Colonel Amy Rodriguez, Earth's chief intelligence officer. "Casualty estimates are approaching 2 million dead, with infrastructure damage at 93% across all 3 colonies. The Korath fleets are withdrawing, but they've left the survivors without life support or evacuation capabilities." Dan studied the tactical displays that showed the full scope of the disaster unfolding 3,000 light-years away. The quantum relay network provided information quality that exceeded what the attacking Korath commanders possessed about their own operations. Earth's hidden sensors had tracked every ship movement, recorded every communication, and analyzed every weapon signature from the assault fleets that believed they were operating without observation. "Activate the Prometheus Protocol," Dan ordered, using the code phrase that would transform Earth from an apparently declining world into something the galaxy had never suspected. "I want reconnaissance teams dispatched immediately and begin preliminary deployment of the Sol Defense Fleet. If they wanted to test our resolve, they're about to discover what humanity has been building while they thought we were hiding." Dr. Amy Rodriguez moved to her station and began entering authorization codes that would awaken military assets scattered throughout the solar system. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt received their first operational orders in over 50 years, while weapons platforms disguised as research stations began powering up systems that could reshape the balance of galactic power. Earth's true nature was about to be revealed to a universe that had forgotten why humanity had once been feared. Captain Ben Turner received his orders while his ship Silent Fury orbited in the shadow of one of Jupiter's smaller moons, invisible to conventional detection methods. The vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering that combined stealth technology with speed capabilities that made Confederation ships seem primitive by comparison. Ben's crew of specialists had trained for decades for missions they hoped would never be necessary, but their preparations were about to be tested under the most dire circumstances imaginable. "We're going in fast and quiet," Ben told his tactical team as they prepared for departure. "Primary mission is survivor rescue and intelligence gathering. Secondary mission is target assessment for the main fleet. The Korath think they've beaten a defenseless species, but they're about to learn what happens when you attack Earth's children." Sergeant Maria Santos checked her equipment one final time before boarding the Silent Fury's assault shuttles. Her team carried weapons and protective gear that represented the absolute peak of human military technology, designed by engineers who had studied every known alien military system and created countermeasures that exceeded galactic standards. Maria had spent 20 years training for combat against species that humanity might encounter among the stars, and now those preparations would determine whether millions of colonists lived or died. The journey to the devastated colonies took 3 days using slip space technology that bypassed every known hyperspace route. Earth scientists had developed their own methods of faster-than-light travel during their centuries of apparent isolation, creating systems that were faster, more efficient, and completely undetectable by Confederation monitoring networks. The Silent Fury and her escort vessels moved through dimensions that alien physics could barely theorize about. When Ben Turner's ships arrived at Harvest Prime, they found a world transformed into a monument to Korath brutality. The agricultural installations that had fed millions of people were reduced to smoking craters, while the orbital facilities floated as debris fields that would take decades to clear. Emergency beacons from scattered survivor groups painted a picture of desperate people clinging to life in the ruins of their peaceful civilization. The rescue operations began immediately, with Earth's advanced medical technology saving lives that would have been lost using Confederation emergency procedures. Transport shuttles equipped with portable life support systems evacuated survivors to safety, while specialized teams gathered intelligence about Korath weapons and tactics. Every piece of information was transmitted back to Earth through the quantum relay network, providing military planners with detailed analysis of their enemies' capabilities. Campbell was among the survivors rescued from Harvest Prime's emergency shelters, her agricultural expertise making her valuable for Earth's intelligence analysts who needed to understand the full scope of colonial infrastructure that had been destroyed. She watched in amazement as human soldiers deployed technology she had never imagined existed, treating injuries with medical devices that seemed decades ahead of anything available in colonial hospitals. "Who are you people?" Lisa asked Captain Turner, as his medical team, worked to save colonists who had been given up for dead by Confederation standards. "I thought Earth had lost contact with the colonies years ago." Ben Turner smiled grimly as he watched his teams work with the efficiency that came from extensive preparation and superior equipment. "Earth never lost contact with her children," he replied quietly. "We've been watching and waiting, hoping this day would never come. But since it has, the people who did this are going to learn why humanity spent 2 centuries preparing for war instead of seeking peace." The intelligence gathered from the 3 devastated colonies painted a clear picture of Korath capabilities and intentions. Their assault fleets represented only a fraction of their total military strength, with the attacks serving as probes to test Confederation response times and human defensive capabilities. The systematic nature of the destruction suggested long-term planning for expansion into human space, with the expectation that Earth's children could be eliminated without significant resistance. As the Silent Fury completed her rescue operations and prepared to return to Earth, the quantum relay network carried new orders that would transform the hidden conflict into something far larger. The Korath Empire had tested humanity's resolve and found it apparently wanting, but their success had triggered responses that would soon teach them the true meaning of human determination. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter came alive with activity as massive structures that had masqueraded as mining platforms for decades revealed their true purpose. Hidden shipyards that had operated in complete secrecy began launching. Vessels whose designs would rewrite every military manual in the galaxy. General Nick Adams watched from the bridge of the dreadnought New Liberty as his fleet assembled for humanity's first major military operation in over 2 centuries. Ships emerging from their concealed bases dwarfed anything in the Confederation's combined fleets. The New Liberty alone measured 3 kilometers in length and carried weapon systems based on principles that alien scientists had never encountered. Her escort vessels included heavy cruisers designed for deep space combat, assault carriers, packed with fighters that could operate in any environment, and support ships carrying technologies that could rebuild devastated worlds in months rather than decades. "Fleet status report," Nick ordered as the final elements of the expeditionary force moved into formation. The tactical displays showed 47 major warships and over 200 support vessels, representing the largest concentration of military power that had ever operated under human command. Each ship carried technologies developed during Earth's long isolation, when humanity's finest minds had focused on ensuring their species would never again face extinction. Colonel Tracy Young reviewed the deployment orders for her ground assault forces as they prepared to board the fleet's troop transports. Her soldiers represented the pinnacle of human military evolution, equipped with armor and weapons that could engage any known alien species on equal or superior terms. The training programs had been brutal and comprehensive, preparing these men and women for combat in environments that most humans could barely imagine. "Remember the mission parameters," Tracy told her battalion commanders during the final briefing. "We are not conquerors or occupiers. We are humanity's response to an unprovoked attack on our children. The Korath Empire chose to test our resolve, and we are going to show them the price of that decision. Every action we take reflects on Earth and our species, so we will conduct ourselves accordingly." The fleet's departure from Earth orbit was witnessed by observation posts throughout the solar system, but no alien intelligence services detected the massive movement of military assets. Earth's stealth technology kept the ships invisible to conventional sensors, while their slipspace drives allowed them to bypass every monitoring station that the Confederation had established to track interstellar traffic. The galaxy remained unaware that humanity was mobilizing for war. Dr. Amy Rodriguez coordinated the intelligence analysis that would guide the fleet's operations from her command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. The Quantum Relay Network. provided real-time information about Korath military positions, allowing Earth strategists to plan their operations with precision that their enemies could not match. Every Korath base, every supply depot, and every fleet concentration was mapped and analyzed before the human ships reached their operational area. The Korath have 17 major military installations scattered across 8 star systems. Amy reported to General Adams through secure communications. Their total fleet strength includes approximately 400 ships of various classes, but they're deployed in small groups throughout their territory. Intelligence suggests they were not expecting retaliation from Earth, so they're defensive. Posture is designed for expansion rather than protection of their core systems. The human fleet's approach to Korath space demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the galaxy understood about faster-than-light travel. Ships that should have taken weeks to traverse interstellar distances arrived in days using technology that made existing hyperspace systems appear primitive. The slip space drives operated by folding spacetime itself, creating shortcuts through dimensions that conventional physics said should not exist. Admiral Morrison and the surviving colonial administrators watched in amazement as human ships began appearing in the devastated systems where the attacks had occurred. The vessels that emerged from slip space were unlike anything in the Confederation database, with hull configurations that suggested design principles decades ahead of galactic standards. The New Liberty alone carried more firepower than the entire human colonial defense fleet. Admiral Morrison, this is General Adams of the Earth Defense Force, came the transmission that changed everything the colonies thought they knew about their homeworld. We are here to restore security to human space and ensure that attacks like this never happen again. Please coordinate with our forces for survivor evacuation and infrastructure reconstruction operations. The Korath forces that had remained in human space to secure their conquest found themselves facing an enemy they had never imagined possible. Human ships appeared without warning, using stealth capabilities that made detection impossible until weapons range was achieved. The first Korath patrol groups to encounter Earth's military forces were destroyed so quickly that they had no time to send warning messages to their commanders. Captain Ben Turner's reconnaissance had provided detailed intelligence about Korath, ship designs and capabilities, allowing Earth's weapons specialists to develop countermeasures that negated every advantage the aliens thought they possessed. Korath plasma weapons proved ineffective against human defensive systems, while their ship's armor offered no protection against human weapons that operated on entirely different principles. The systematic dismantling of Korath military power began with surgical strikes against their forward bases and communication networks. Human forces moved with the precision of surgeons and the overwhelming power of a force that had been designed specifically for this type of operation. Every target was neutralized with minimal collateral damage, but the message was clear too. Anyone capable of understanding it got Colonel Tracy, Young's ground forces deployed to liberate Korath prisoner of war camps, where human survivors from the colonial attacks were being held for interrogation. The rescue operations demonstrated human military capabilities that exceeded anything the Korath had encountered in their previous conquests. Soldiers equipped with powered armor and energy weapons moved through enemy positions like unstoppable forces of nature. The Korath commander, who had mocked humanity's apparent helplessness, found himself facing a military response that redefined everything his species understood about warfare. Human ships appeared in his home system with capabilities that made his previous victories seem like minor skirmishes against defenseless targets. The weapons that had easily destroyed colonial defenses proved useless against Earth's military technology. Korath forces, this is General Adams of the Earth Defense Force, came the transmission that announced humanity's arrival as a major military power. You have committed unprovoked acts of war against human civilian populations. Your military assets will be destroyed. your leadership will be held accountable, and your empire will learn the consequences of attacking Earth's children. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue resistance and face the full consequences of your actions. The galaxy began to realize that humanity's peaceful integration into Confederation society had hidden the most advanced military force in known space. The Korath home system fell silent as the last of their defensive platforms was systematically dismantled by human forces that had appeared like ghosts from the void. Emperor Vax himself watched from his command ship as weapons that his scientists insisted were impossible tore through shields that had protected Korath space for 3 centuries. The beings his intelligence services had dismissed as weak farmers and miners were demonstrating military capabilities that made his empire's conquests look like the actions of primitive raiders. General Nick Adams stood on the bridge of the New Liberty as his fleet completed the encirclement of the Korath capital world. The operation had taken exactly 72 hours from initial deployment to complete victory, with human losses limited to minor damage on 3 escort vessels. The speed and efficiency of the campaign would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for generations, assuming any Korath survived to provide testimony about what they had witnessed. Sir, we're receiving surrender broadcasts from 17 Korath fleet commanders, reported Communications Officer Steve Parker. They're requesting terms and asking for guarantees that their crews will be treated according to galactic law. The Emperor's personal flagship is maintaining communication silence, but our sensors indicate they've powered down their weapons systems. The surrender of the Korath Empire came not through negotiation or gradual defeat, but through the simple recognition that continued resistance was impossible against forces that operated beyond their understanding. Human ships had appeared throughout Korath space simultaneously, using slipspace technology that allowed coordination across interstellar distances in real time. The systematic destruction of military assets had been completed before most Korath commanders realized they were under attack. Colonel Tracy Young's ground forces had secured every major Korath installation without encountering serious resistance. The alien soldiers who had terrorized human colonies discovered that their weapons and tactics were ineffective against opponents who moved like they could predict every action before it happened. The powered armor worn by human soldiers deflected Korath energy weapons, while their own equipment cut through alien defensive positions with surgical precision. Resistance collapsed completely once they realized we weren't interested in conquest. Tracy reported to General Adams during the final status briefing. The Korath military was designed for attacking weaker opponents, not defending against superior forces. Their entire strategic doctrine assumed they would always hold technological advantages over their enemies. The capture of Emperor Vax and his senior commanders provided Earth's intelligence services with access to records that revealed the full scope of Korath ambitions in human space. The attacks on the colonies had been intended as the first phase of a campaign to eliminate human presence from 3 entire sectors, clearing the way for Korath expansion into territory they considered rightfully theirs. The systematic nature of their planning demonstrated that the assault had been years in preparation. Commander Pete Harris, Earth's chief intelligence officer, reviewed the captured documents that explained how the Korath had planned their campaign based on fundamental misunderstandings about human capabilities. Their intelligence services had accepted the public fiction that Earth was a declining world populated by survivors, too damaged by ancient wars to maintain contact with their scattered children. The colonies were viewed as isolated settlements, protected only by token Confederation forces. They never understood that Earth's isolation was voluntary. Pete explained to the assembled Korath leadership during their War Crimes Tribunal aboard the New Liberty. Your intelligence services saw what we wanted them to see, while the real preparations for this day continued in secret. Every colony, every settlement, every human presence in the galaxy has been under Earth's protection since the day it was established. The reconstruction of the devastated human colonies began immediately, with Earth's advanced technology healing wounds that the Confederation had considered permanent. Massive engineering ships arrived at Harvest Prime carrying equipment that could restore agricultural facilities in weeks rather than the years that conventional methods would require. The orbital installations destroyed by Korath bombardment were replaced with structures more advanced than anything that had existed before the attacks. Lisa Campbell watched in amazement as automated systems rebuilt the grain storage facilities she had managed before the attack. But the new installations incorporated technologies that would increase agricultural output beyond anything the colonies had previously achieved. The equipment being deployed represented decades of advancement in agricultural science, developed by Earth's researchers, while the galaxy remained unaware of their existence. "How long have you been planning this?" Lisa asked Captain Ben Turner, as they surveyed the reconstruction operations from the observation deck of his ship. "The technology you're using seems like it was designed specifically for rebuilding after this type of attack." Ben smiled as he watched. Earth's engineering teams work with the efficiency that came from extensive preparation and unlimited resources. Earth has been planning for every possible threat to human survival since the day we first reached the stars, he replied. The Korath attacks activated protocols that were written before your grandparents were born, but we hoped we would never need to use them. The revelation of Earth's true capabilities sent shockwaves through the Galactic Confederation that fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power. The Zephyrians found themselves dealing with a human military that possessed technology decades ahead of their own advanced systems, while the Nexari discovered that human science had progressed far beyond anything they had imagined possible. The species that had been considered useful junior partners suddenly represented the most advanced civilization in known space. Admiral Morrison received new orders from Earth that established human space as an autonomous region under direct Earth protection, with Confederation forces welcome as guests, but no longer needed for security purposes. The patrol boats and frigates that had once represented humanity's entire military presence were replaced by vessels that could challenge entire Confederation battle fleets. The change in status was announced politely, but firmly, with no room for negotiation or debate. The Confederation Council convened emergency sessions to address the reality that one of their member species had been concealing military capabilities that exceeded their combined fleets. The political implications were staggering, but the practical reality was simple. Humanity had demonstrated the ability to project power across interstellar distances with speed and precision that made existing military doctrine obsolete. Emperor Vax and his surviving commanders were transported to Earth for trial and imprisonment, where they would spend the remainder of their lives contemplating the consequences of underestimating a species that had learned from near extinction. The Korath Empire ceased to exist as a political entity, its territory placed under Confederation administration, while its military assets were dismantled by human engineering teams. The message transmitted to every government in the galaxy was simple and direct. Earth's children were under the protection of forces that had spent 2 centuries preparing for any threat that might emerge from the darkness between stars. The peaceful farmers and miners who had integrated so successfully into galactic civilization were backed by the most advanced military machine in known space, and any future aggression against human settlements would face consequences that made the Korath Empire's fate seem merciful by comparison. Humanity had returned to galactic affairs, and the galaxy would never be the same.